I guess now that you figured out
The
some
thing is,
things
Yuri,
and
once you break down what they
That's
say,
been
it
a
just
miracle
doesn't make any sense.
before I knew
Yuri,
Jack.
listen,
what
listen. If Jack, look, Jack wouldn't have to put up with any bullshit. Okay, I was in the room. I was in the room. Okay, I was muted. I couldn't even respond. And all Jack had to say was, "Well, Vade, it seems to be the case that what you're not understanding is," and
Why
then
would
just
he
give
do
the fucking
that?
argument. Why wouldn't
Haha,
he?
he
Why?
attacked you and your hands were tied behind your back with a mute?
No, they
No,
probably
no,
weren't even
Jack.
talking
I'm
about him.
saying that Jack refused to. Yuri said, "Jack, Vade is here. Why don't you explain to him why he was wrong about intentional realism?" And all Jack would have to have said is a couple of
Well,
sentences, and I
all
wouldn't.
Jack said, why would I do that? And I
Yeah.
couldn't give a good reason to Jack why he would debate you on that topic,
Well, he
given
wouldn't even have to
his
debate. I couldn't
behavior.
even debate. I was muted. But why would it be the case that somebody, when prompted to explain their position, can't even give the position?
It's not
I mean,
about can't give. Vivek, stop
why
being so
wouldn't he? What
dishonest.
is the
You're being
fucking
very
reason why he wouldn't?
dishonest.
Is he
There's
assuming
many
that I'm
reasons.
being?
Can you wait? Let's just stop for a second, Vivek. Can you think of a reason why you wouldn't?
I'll say that for my part, I cannot think of a reason why I would not give somebody my
Do
position
you
when.
think if he had the belief that you're a dishonest interlocutor or that you're toxic or something like that, could you think
I
of a
don't think
reason
that
why
Jack
he
even
wouldn't?
Okay, so
believes
What's
that.
your
let me
thought?
I
ask
don't
you,
think he even
Jovan, what is dishonest about asking somebody to clarify some confusion about their
It's
position?
dishonest to say that he can't do it just because he didn't.
I didn't say he can't
You
do it.
did say he can't. Yes,
No,
you
I
did.
didn't say he can't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Exact words was he couldn't.
even
No,
look, even though that's
I,
unrelated
I
to
when I said
whether or
he
not
couldn't,
Jack will.
yeah, when I
You
said he
said
couldn't do it,
he can't.
listen, Jovan, what I meant by he couldn't do it is he couldn't get over his misperceptions and misattributions of trolling or dishonesty to me to just simply give his position. I believe that he very well could give his position to me if he wasn't so fucking inured in this delusion
You mean if he didn't
of
dislike you so much?
yeah, if he didn't dislike me so much based on
Yeah,
his delusional state
yeah.
regarding my character.
There's
Now,
nothing
I dislike a
contradictory. There's
wide
nothing
variety.
inconsistent.
Yes, I
There's
dislike a
nothing
wide
wrong with
variety
not
of people,
explaining
okay?
something to somebody that you dislike.
Yes, I dislike a wide variety of people, but especially if I'm in the company of others who, know my positions. When I'm asked to clarify my positions by somebody who I don't like, I will still do that
Yeah, that might
because
be a
I don't
value that you hold. Jack doesn't hold that value. There you go.
right. And I think that
No
the
reason
reason
to
we can
cry about
ascribe that value to Jack isn't because it would be a waste of his time. It isn't because he can't do
it.
it
You can
like,
speculate all you want.
simpliciter. Yeah, yeah. And I think it's a pretty
Yeah, just
accurate
stop crying
speculation.
about it in
Man,
here.
Jovan, suck Jack's cock some more.
Yeah. Please go
That's
ahead.
what you guys are doing right now.
How are we
No,
doing
no,
that right
I'm
You're
being
now?
sucking
icon.
on the teats of Jack. You can't get
How?
over him.
I'm being
Again,
You
how?
can't get
iconoclastic.
over
I'm
him. You can't
How?
stop
no,
talking about.
Jovan.
You're just talking
Listen,
nonsense
Jovan,
at
I'm
this
an
Let's
point.
sit here
iconoclast,
for
all right?
3 hours and speculate on Jack's
No,
intentions.
Jovan,
Does that
listen to
sound
me.
fun,
I'm an
Yuri?
I'm
iconoclast.
not. I'm
I'm an
not.
iconoclast, and Jack is
Someone's
an
calling.
That's
icon of a
exactly what you
particular
guys are trying to
community.
do.
So that's like saying that the iconoclasts just wanted to suck the gladiators' dicks because, oh no, they were iconoclasts. They were drawing focus to something that they viewed as absurd about Grecian society,
Everybody's
and that's all I'm
definitely
doing.
just muted.
So I think that Holy and that whole Hafe Saving crowd, the Pal
Oh,
Talkers or whatever,
you
I think
literally
they're a
mean
community,
everyone,
and I think
Jovan?
Jack is an icon in that community, and I think that he's an absurd icon. And I think I could debase him if given the chance to in an expedient fashion. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to be proven wrong.
You really
Jo
love to hear the
Jovan,
sound of your own
Jovan,
voice,
wait,
Faith.
Jovan.
I
I'm
do,
gonna play the
and
same low IQ game that you play. Do you mean literally everyone in here is muted, Jovan?
You've done that game, Ace.
I
That's
never
what
play.
you
I
do. Yes,
never
you
play that game.
have.
Look, it's such a low IQ
That's what
game that
you
you play
do.
constantly. Oh, what you mean that he really can't
This is
actually
really
do
sad, Ace.
that?
well, Jovan,
It's just no.
let me put it this
I'm
way
just
too,
throwing
right?
back what
Like
you're throwing out.
So I'm agnostic on talking with Jack ultimately because I actually do want to hear the case for intentional realism. And any one of Jack's cronies could give that. And the only one that's been, that's possessed good faith enough to even try is Yuri. And there are people in that crowd who have never fucking talked to me before, but they take it on authority that they shouldn't talk to me because Jack says that I'm trash. So there doesn't seem to be anywhere I can go to have a discussion with anybody except for Yuri about this concept that's supposedly a very significant philosophical concept, such that an entire fucking community is like basing their worldview on it. Now,
Yeah, but whose fault is that?
it's not anyone's fault.
It would be the fault of the person that admittedly trolled for the longest time, right?
What's wrong with that?
That would give somebody the impression that you're not worth talking to.
Why
And in
not?
the future, they wouldn't talk to you. You don't think that could
You're a
give somebody...
troll, Jovan. You're a troll, and I'm talking to you right now.
What's your point?
That's a fucking poor excuse for not engaging with
I
somebody
troll on
in some other given
specific
context.
things.
I
You
troll on specific things
just,
too.
No. You trolled about just about everything when you first came. You lied about who you were. You lied about your positions. When
Still
you
lie about who I
argued,
am.
you were arguing dishonestly. You refused to give any evidence. You said you're never going to support a claim that you made. Those are reasons for me and other reasonable people to not take you serious in those discussions.
Hey, shout
So,
out to
Jovan,
Lori
if we're in a discussion,
Letachio.
if we're in a discussion and I'm actually making cogent arguments against some given position, all right, which I was against intentional realism. All of the arguments that I gave were solid arguments against intentional realism. Now, you can say that I trolled in the past, but why should that have any bearing at all on the words that I say that are direct refutations of some position, in this case, intentional realism?
It doesn't have any bearing on the words that you say. It has
Right.
a bearing on it has a bearing on whether or not someone would want to talk to you or respond to your words.
So if I had somebody, just some random person, okay, that Jack had no emotional turmoil over, and I told him every fucking word to say, and then he gave it to Jack, Jack would reply to him. Jack would respond and argue in
he
good
would
faith.
talk if the person asked him a question and he likes that person. Yeah, he'll talk to that person.
So what basically all you're describing is that Jack is a very effeminate, cliquish person. That's all you're
No.
saying. Yes. Yeah.
We all have
That's
people
all you're
that
saying.
we
If
dislike
Jack
that we'd rather
likes
not
you,
talk
if Jack likes you enough, he might be willing to tell you something.
to. Yeah, that's
Listen to
everybody.
the butthurt.
Yeah, that
I
sounds
know,
like a
right,
fucking
Michael?
bitch.
Like this
This
seems
is just
extremely.
wild.
Doesn't this seem trivial, Michael? He's like crying about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack
Yeah,
is
I'm
talking
crying.
about
I'm
it
just,
so
I'm
much.
fucking tears are just coming down my face that this
Yeah,
fucking
you
little
are. You're
bitch
just a whiner.
won't tell
You're
me
Why
about his
won't
worldview.
Jack talk to me?
Why won't this fucking bitch
Yeah.
give me your number? This
Yeah.
bitch is such a little
Michael.
fucking cunt.
It just shows how intelligent Jack is, right? Because Jack predicted this like a long time ago and even ranked him in categories regarding who was the whiner, right? They just whine and complain, and Jack thinks it's hilarious. I think Jack is. I think we need to trust Jack's reasoning on this because I think Jack has a
Oh
card
man,
up the sleeve
Yuri
that he's not.
deifying Jack even more. What a surprise.
Jack has been like right all the time.
Oh, right, all the time, except for where you disagree with.
Well, I don't think his view is wrong. I just think mine's just a more
It's
probable
just
view.
Look, Yuri, it's just nonsense.
I mean, let's
Look,
look at
I
Michael,
don't think
for
there's anything
example.
wrong. I don't think there's
Michael,
anything
Michael
incoherent
is willing.
with their existing value properties, right? I just
Shut
don't happen to
up,
take that.
Yuri, nobody fucking cares what you think.
Then why'd you ask me, dumbass?
I'm just telling you, dumbass. Go suck Jack's dick some more.
Jovan, this is how dumb Ace is. He's fucking
Yeah.
retarded.
Yeah,
I think he got a
Says
concussion when he
you.
pancaked that
Says
guy.
the fucking
I actually
retard
believe
that
Ace. When he
pisses
pancaked that
on his
guy,
own
he got a
carpet.
concussion.
What a fucking
Yuri, the
retard.
sad thing is he gets upset when people interrupt him, but he keeps interrupting
Right,
you.
and he's just over talking me.
Look,
It's a
I
fucking
was in the
joke.
middle of a sentence and Yuri
Yeah, I was in the middle of a
talking.
sentence, dumbass. Fucking
No,
dumbass.
no, Yuri. I waited till you were done.
Yuri, you're
No,
really.
you didn't wait till.
really
Why do you
getting
lie?
I'm not a
Ace?
liar.
Why do you just outright
I get
lie?
it. Look,
I guess
look,
that's.
I don't know.
I
Why
get
do you guys
Yuri.
white knight for
Nobody
Jack so
cares
hard?
what you have to
It's
say.
like you
Go
guys are
piss on
saying
your
I'm obsessed
carpets.
with Jack, but you
I'm
keep
not
sucking his
white
dick.
knighting for Jack. I'm white knighting for truth, and you guys are just a bunch of
For
blasphemers. And
for truth. Oh,
Yuri,
Yuri,
Jack is
go
a
suck Jack's
liar,
dick.
Yuri. Jack is lying to you, son.
he's not lying to me at all.
He
Jack
is.
is,
He's
Jack is one of the
misleading.
nicest
He
guys
is
in this community
misleading
too.
the youth. All right, Yuri. So you said that fucking Michael could give an account of
I
intentional
don't think he
realism.
wants to. I don't think he wants to
Oh, I
anymore.
bet he doesn't.
Depending
I
on how
bet
he's
he
been
does.
acting.
Intentional realism, the most profound philosophical reason that, or philosophical idea that nobody wants to discuss.
Come on, mute him if he's gonna do that.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, man.
Was he pissing and talking?
Whoever muted him, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I was tired of that shit.
I mean, to be honest, that's kind of the level this
Yeah, you can
chat
just mute
deserves
Ace too.
sometimes.
You can add Ace to that bucket list.
Why? What have I done so far?
Still trying to talk shit.
Shut up, you. Look, I'm just saying, like, sometimes this fucking server deserves some fucking piss noise, because that's all you guys do.
What have you done so far? You interrupted, overtalked, tried to derail the conversation with insults, refused to
Yeah.
let your interlocutor speak.
Okay, and are
Chuck.
all of those mutable offenses?
Yeah, but I didn't mute you.
No, yeah, no, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
Look, dumbass. You do all
Hey,
of those
Nobody, you should
things
test your
multiple
power on him right now.
times. You do all those things multiple times, and you've never been muted for.
Oh, he hasn't.
So,
No,
yeah,
he hasn't.
Ace,
double
the
standard.
difference between me and you, Ace, is if someone asked me to let you finish, I'll let you finish.
What do you mean? I let people finish constantly.
No, you don't. You'll literally, Ace,
What
like
are
you'll
you talking
literally,
about? That's just nonsense.
you'll literally say, "Hey, I'm not interrupting." After interrupting, to keep interrupting.
Look, just like 20 minutes ago when Declan was trying to talk, I said, "Oh, wait. Declan's trying to talk. I want to hear from Declan." Like, what are you?
That was after you was interrupting. That was after you was interrupting.
Poor fucking poor memory, Jovan.
That's literally exactly what I was talking about, Ace.
Smoke some
Ace,
more.
that's
Smoke
literally
some
exactly
more
what I was talking
weed.
about. You
Smoke
interrupted
some more weed. I'm
Declan.
sure it'll help you.
You interrupted Declan. I said, "Stop interrupting Declan," and then you said, "I'm not
No,
interrupting
you didn't.
Declan. I'm just interjecting." That is what happened.
No, you didn't.
You're a retard. You can't remember the last couple minutes. It's insane.
You can't. A couple minutes. No, look, it was when Vade was talking up, and I said, "No, I want to hear what Declan has to say." I don't know if the server moved or if what happened there. There's like a disconnection.
Man, Jovan, it's just
I think
crazy
it
to me
moved.
how upset these guys are at Jack, man. It's
Look,
insane.
I'm not upset with Jack. I just think that there's a
Yeah, no, I don't
high
give two
degree
fucks
of
about Jack.
hypocrisy and cowardice in your community.
Yeah,
that's all.
that's true.
Jack is just at the center of that. Again, like I'll reiterate,
If you don't
like
want
I
to
would
talk
be
to
happy,
Vade, you're a
I
coward.
would be happy. I would
Wow.
be happy to speak. I would be
Yeah,
happy.
if I don't
well,
want to, if I'm an
it's
NFL
not. We're
team,
not
I
having
don't
a
want to
discussion.
play a
It is a
little league
debate.
team.
Let
I'm a
Vade
coward.
finish.
Joe.
He just
Let
admitted
Vade
that
finish.
he's reiterating. He's just repeating
Let-
himself.
let-
He's already
well,
said
still,
Yeah,
this.
he's just repeating himself. He's just
Well,
repeating.
it's something
Look,
that
we don't
you
wanna
don't
hear
seem to
him.
have
you
registered.
guys are repeating yourselves right now by saying that he's repeating himself. So
What are
let
you
him
talking
finish.
about?
What are
I
you
only said
talking
that
about?
one
What are
time.
Do you
what
even
are
know
you
what I
saying?
was going to
Look,
so-called repeat? Because I don't think
repeated
you
himself
do.
multiple
Because I don't
times.
think you heard it the first time I said it.
Yeah, in case you guys didn't hear me.
Just
Yeah, I just
calm.
repeated.
Look, Yuri, just sit
So-
down for a sec.
So what I was saying that I think bears repeating is that I would be happy to have a debate on this topic of intentional realism with anybody who's conversant with the topic, because I can't find anyone else outside of your
Yeah,
fucking
we already
little
know
community
this.
that does. So, that's not me crying. It's just I find the topic interesting. I think it's an incoherent position. I think that if I was able to develop a case that's strong enough that in all instances of a debate I could render it incoherent, that would be a victory, not only for
Who are you
myself
talking
as a
to?
person, but also for like this community. Like I think that would be a paradigm shifting event if some fucking supposed troll like Vade could develop such a strong argument against intentional realism to render it incoherent, I think that would be a significant victory. And I think it's lamentable that no one is willing to engage with me because they just levy these accusations of me being a bad faith actor or whatever. When it comes to the sense of making a debate, I'm not a bad faith actor. And everyone knows this.
Mr. I am never going to support anything I say, right?
Well, when it comes to philosophical debates, no one needs to provide empirical proof of anything. It's philosophy.
That's not what you said. You said you're never going to support anything empirically.
Right, which would not apply because we're talking about
In
philosophical
empirical
discussion.
Matters.
Yes, that's right, Jovan.
Yes,
That's a non
empirical
sequitur in this
questions
sense, isn't it?
requires empirical evidence.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and
Yes, and you said you were never going to provide empirical evidence for your empirical claims.
right. I said that at one time because it would be inconvenient to do so. I said that I'm on my phone. I'm not going to be providing any evidence for these claims. I will tell you how you can find what I'm talking about so you can
This
verify. That's what I
is
said.
an example.
And that is completely and utterly irrelevant to this discussion about having a philosophical conceptual discussion with Jack or any of his crew, right? Because we're not talking about empirical matters in any way. So you can't say...
Is Vade still talking?
He
Jesus.
can't stop, man.
I think you guys are just complaining about the fact that your golden calf is being slaughtered.
Now you're trying to say
I
that
wouldn't
we're
say that the
complaining.
golden... I wouldn't say it's being slaughtered. It's that
You are.
they're being frustrated by somebody who is saying, I'm willing to slaughter your golden calf for you.
Like, these are the type of people that can walk in here and just start screaming into the mic and think they won because
Believe me, I know.
No, I
Yeah,
never
Ace, this is the
considered
most
the volume
interesting
of
tactic that they use.
Wait, Vade,
and
one sec.
Well, don't
I've
talk
never
to them.
considered.
Look, we can have a discussion.
Can I just finish? I've never
Who cares,
considered the
Ace?
volume.
Who gives a shit?
I know. Look, just let me get my sentence out. I would have
They're
already asked.
eating each other alive, Declan.
Look, I never consider the volume of the person talking as indicative of their correctness. So I
Wait,
know
is
where you're
my
getting
mic
that from.
is my mic loud? I mean, I'm just talking at a normal volume. Do I?
No, I'm just counteracting their nonsense.
Oh. Well, Ace, anyway, this tactic is really common among the PAL talkers and them.
Are you guys just trying to cry all day? You guys can go and talk to yourselves about this if you want to.
Well, I mean, yeah. Do
I
you
mean,
guys
I guess
want
we
to
could do
actually
that.
talk about something substantive rather than just bullshit meta?
Cry about Jack? Yeah, we'd love that.
Yeah, me too. I was over and done with this conversation like half
No,
an hour.
you weren't.
No, I was. I mean, do you think I've like tried to push this conversation at all
Yes.
since about a half hour
No,
ago?
I've been the one that's been pushing it.
Yeah.
Ace has too.
No,
he's
Jovan,
been
you
he's
just
been a
you just want to
backseat.
cry more.
Yeah, he's a backseat driver. He's been trying to push it
No, I
along.
said a
Just want to
backseat
cry
occupant.
more.
No, he's
This
just
is really
repeating what I
dumb.
said.
So, Vade, I don't know, did I ever talk to you about the Star series?
Yeah, and the
we
whole
brought that
thing
up.
about it possibly being in a binary star relation.
I don't know. What have you looked into that since we talked?
No,
or
because
what are your
it
thoughts?
seemed.
Does
it
anyone
seemed
want to
still
hear
kind of
this?
impossible.
No, I'm
Why-
actually
why
about
do
to
you
dip
think-
out here in a minute.
Why do you think it would be impossible?
I think I'm moving them to their
Because
own
it's so
room so they
fucking
can
far.
talk about
No,
this.
look, Jovan, no.
Why
How
would you
about
do that?
I just
Look,
highly doubt
unless you
anybody.
wanna-
I mean,
Jovan,
if someone
unless
wants to
you
speak
wanna-
up and say that they want to hear it, I'll leave
Look,
you guys
how
in here.
about-
But it seems,
look,
I
if you
highly
wanna
doubt
bring up a
anybody in
topic-
here wants to hear.
Yeah, that's
Look,
right.
if you wanna
Everybody's
bring up a
agnostic on what the topic is.
Yeah, if you want to bring
Does
up a
anyone want to
topic,
hear
go
what
ahead.
Ace and
Look,
Jade are talking
if
about?
you want to bring up a topic, go ahead. What topic do you want to talk about?
Ace, what are you saying?
If you don't look, if you don't
intentional
have a topic,
realism.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
God.
Let's talk about intentional realism.
Troll
I wanna hear
Cam.
Cam,
I'm kidding.
Cam,
I'm
you're a
kidding.
good
I'm
faith
kidding.
actor. Do you know much about intentional realism?
No, but when I've had Jack try to convince me at least of his form of intentional realism that seems to take intention to be something like fundamental in our ontology, I just don't understand what he's talking about. and I don't
Yeah,
understand
neither do
how it
I.
provides a explanation for intention.
I
It
mean,
just
so
sort of seems
I
to
got
be, to me, it seems to be giving a mysterious answer to a mysterious question.
well, I got multiple people to affirm that on the view of intentional realism, intentions supervene on dispositions, and dispositions can be said to be wholly physical. Now, this creates a really bad problem for them that I think that they don't have an answer for, and I'm really, really interested to hear, because Yuri's the only person I think that is going to engage with me on intentional realism from here on out. So I basically have to play this waiting game of Yuri hearing Jack enough to be able to regurgitate what Jack says. But it would seem to be the case that if intentions supervene on dispositions, and dispositions are wholly physical, that I mean, why
Yeah,
wouldn't
he
you
doesn't.
just
Jack doesn't think intentions are physical.
well, right, dispositions are physical. He thinks intentions aren't, but this is the thing: is that if intentions supervene on dispositions, then where do they differ? Like, where is the demarcation point?
What
Not
do you
only
mean they
between
supervene?
you don't know what
I
supervenience
know what
is.
it means. I'm asking you in this context.
Okay, well, I asked if a disposition changes, does the intention also change? And they said yes.
You mean the behavior?
Well, no, the intention.
No, when you say disposition, you're talking about the behavior.
Well, I haven't gotten a clear understanding of what they mean by behavior. I got a clear understanding of what they meant by disposition. What is your understanding of what they mean by behavior? Because behavior seems consequential to the intention. So that would come way after. That's like 2 steps beyond where I'm at in this understanding this model.
Well, you can have a behavior that's wasn't caused by your intention, right? Like you can have say that you had it wasn't directly caused by your intention. Like you can have the intention to reach for the glass of water, but you have the behavior of spitting in the air. It just so happens that you're wired to where when you try to reach for the water, like you have the intention to reach your body, just spits in the air instead, right? The behavior would be
Are you
spitting in the air because it wasn't the result of an intention.
okay? Well, insofar as intentions are extensional to dispositions, wouldn't you just say that you had the disposition to spit in the air when you reach for the glass of water?
No, because an intention has aims, goals, beliefs, and desires, and or
Yeah, but
first
you
order.
just regurgitate this, and again, Yuri, you
Well, the
can't
point
ever
is, you're right
say
that you're not going to be a different. The point is, right, like any intention, any behaviors is going to be consistent with any intention.
yeah, and so the way that I rendered it yesterday that had to be clarified for Yuri was if intentions are extensional to dispositions, and it can be said that if you reached for the water and you knocked it over and that was not your intention, couldn't you just say that your disposition changed to knock the water down and not that that you were out of accord with your intention?
Well, you
Because if
could say you were disposed to knock the water over, but
right. And so if intentions supervene on dispositions and your disposition changed from I want to pick up the water to I'm going to knock the water down, then how isn't there a direct supervenient relationship to the intention
there
changing?
would never have been a change.
Why not?
Disposed to knock the water down if you're saying it was the disposition.
That's what I'm saying. They say that dispositions are wholly physical states. In fact, they gave a pretty accurate account of eliminative materialism on the view of dispositions.
Yeah, disposition is going to be a law-like relation.
They just define dispositions as a
Well, no. Dispositions are merely behaviors, right? When in reference to an agent, right? But when we're referring to anything else in the universe, like rocks, trees, or me lighting a match and it reacting with the oxygen in the air, we just say that it's a mechanistic law-like relation, right? We only use disposition in reference to the agent, right?
So if dispositions are wholly physical states, right, or
Hey
the
Jovan, isn't
product
that what I was telling Danny last night? Like when we were
No,
talking
wait,
about reason.
dispositions. But wait, no. The reason why we call them dispositions, right, is because oh man, I lost my train of thought. No, yeah. The reason why we call them dispositions is because dispositions are. We say that dispositions are physical, right? Is that they can be observed by science, right? We say that that can't be the case for intentionality because intentionality doesn't follow a law-like relation.
Well, the
Yeah, but
dispositions are the result of law-like
you
relations.
you the
No. You
way
can't
that you
have an
describe.
intention, but no, Jovan, you can't have an intention without a disposition. In order to have an intention, you need the disposition first.
So how is it that intentions can supervene on dispositions? That is to say, that intentions are extensional to dispositional states, and intentions not just be dispositions.
Because one follows a law-like relation and the other doesn't.
Well, if intentions supervene on dispositions, there's definitely a fucking law-like relation there.
Well, you don't think you can be in or out of accord with an intention? Or do you think you can be in or out of
That is
accord?
why I gave you
Well,
the quandary that you had to go to Jack to about
wait, no,
whether
I'm not.
or not.
Wait, hold on, right? Are you saying that you can be in or out of accord with a disposition? If so, how would you do that?
No, you can't be in or out of accord with a
Well,
disposition.
that's the distinction. Well, that's the distinction. It stops right there. That's the distinction, right?
Yeah,
One is
but
that you
all you're asserting is that by fiat there exists this thing called intentions that you can be in or out of accord with, but you can't give an argument for how that is the case.
Well, that's why we have the rule following argument, right? Which I tried to give the other.
And I can do that for you right now, show you how the rule following argument is not a defeater for naturalism. It just fucking isn't. I don't know why you weren't clear on this.
No,
It is
I think it is
not
a defeater for
naturalism.
Well,
Yeah, just because there
rule
exists
following
some
argument just
indeterminate
shows.
information.
This is why Jack
Look,
won't debate
You
with
guys
you,
are
right?
talking at the same
This is the
time.
behavior. This is why Jack won't debate with you, right? So as I was
because
saying,
I raised difficult questions.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry, dumbass. Right. So the
Yeah, oh,
intention,
wow.
right, in the
Okay,
rule.
Jack.
So the intent, mods, admins, are we going to let this happen, or should I just
Oh,
lower
Yuri's
the
on a
volume?
rampage.
Should we let this happen?
I mean,
Because I think the mods and admins here are more
Yuri got
respectful than
triggered.
that.
Yuri, he's really.
Like, oh fuck, my rule following argument
Right,
fell
but
apart.
Tom, are you just because you're an eliminativist materialist, Tom, you're gonna let this bullshittery happen like in blue politics? Or are you gonna actually mute him? Are you
Yuri.
gonna mute him, Tom? Are you gonna mute him, Tom? I'm gonna have to overtalk everyone in the server.
Yuri, he's really not that out of control, even. I mean, I don't see
Well,
what.
he is over talking.
Yeah, he is over talking. Joe
Oh.
You've been over talking.
Yeah, he's over talking.
This whole fucking time.
Maybe he's over.
This is why Jack won't debate this idiot.
Jeez.
Jack and them say that animals have dispositions, but they're not agents. They don't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was gonna get to that point, right, dumbass? But no one wanted to let me finish.
Were you calling Godless a dumbass?
Sorry about that, Godless.
You said that to have a disposition, you have to have an intention.
That was mean, Yuri.
No, but she said to have an intention, you have to have a disposition.
Yeah, there's a dependency relation between the two, in our view.
Yeah, so let's stick with the rule following argument and how fucking retarded you are.
As I was saying, dumbass, the rule following argument shows how intentionality or first order intentions can't be reduced to the physical. That's what the argument shows, which falsifies naturalism. That's what the argument states, right? And that falsifies naturalism by definition, because naturalism is the thesis that all things are caused by natural things, right?
False. The rule following paradox only aims to show or to describe a problem of information hiding, that there exists some hidden variable that one cannot determine to be true.
That's not the argument. There's no hidden variable.
That is the fucking argument,
man.
The
argument just shows how one's normative and it can't be reduced to the physical. That's the argument. Nothing but
it doesn't say anything at all.
Wait, I'm just
Wittgenstein.
Right? He's claiming
did not in any way, shape, or form gesture towards physicalism.
And I just want to show. Yuri.
And I just want to. Sorry, dumbass.
Stop,
I just want to see. I just want to see.
I just want to see. Yuri, you've been ranting this entire time, and you need to let other people talk.
And I predict that Vade won't be able to provide a response. right?
How about you let
Go
him
ahead,
talk
Vade.
rather than just
Go
rant
ahead,
the
Vade.
entire time?
Go ahead, Vade.
Yuri,
Stop
Yuri,
ranting.
take it easy, man. It's all
I'm fine,
everything's
Tom.
under
I'm
control.
fine. I know you want a white knight with your little eliminate
I'm
this
not even
material
saying
studies,
anything, dude.
but
I'm
I'm not
not
gonna
even
let this
saying.
fuckery
What a
happen. I'm
fucking
not gonna let
bitch.
our view get challenged like this, man. So
What a bitch.
I mean, not
So
allowing your view to be
can
challenged
I
is kind of central to your whole society there. So, yeah, which is funny
can,
because that's kind of
Vade?
antithetical to philosophy. But anyway,
go ahead. I'm
uh,
asking.
Hey
I'm
yeah.
Yuri,
asking.
I'll
I'm asking
I'll
how you
reiterate for you.
inferred that
I'll
there's a
reiterate.
hidden variable, that
Mhm.
the argument presents a hidden variable. I'm asking you how you inferred that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
From
Because the rule following paradox makes no allusions whatsoever to whether or not the phenomenon of not being able to, justify giving one answer over the other on intentions, of whether or not that's a physical phenomenon or not. All right, it makes no prescriptions on that at all. It is entirely skepticism on human language and semantic reasoning, purely. It has absolutely zero to say, even by logical implication, that
Look,
these
that's
things
just
can't
restating
be
the
reduced.
claim. Look
That's
what he
fine.
just
Why are you
did.
interrupting
He
me?
just
Why
restated.
are you
He just
why are you
restated.
interrupting me?
Dumbass.
Hold on,
He
hold
just,
on. Everyone calm down. All right, calm down,
wait, he
calm
just
down, Yuri.
restated
Stop
the
that.
claim.
Stop. Josh is here. Let
Oh,
Josh
Josh, man,
respond to
Josh
that.
is here. I'm done. Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Josh isn't going to say anything of value, so let's just
Well,
continue, okay?
what
Yeah,
you
Josh,
said
go
was
ahead.
what you said was wrong, Vade.
Yeah, that's what I was just got to get.
Yuri, shut up and let him.
It's not a semantic thesis. It's not even epistemic. So what you said was just
Well,
nonsense.
I don't know what semantic thesis means to you, but it is a skeptical view on semantic construction.
It's not about semantics. So
Oh, it
the
isn't.
following
Okay.
argument as presented
All
is
right.
not
So
Let him finish, Vade. Shut up. Shut up. Let him finish, Vade.
the rule following argument as it's presented doesn't have to do with doesn't have anything to do with language or semantics or anything like that. What it has to do with is the idea that if you don't have something besides the behaviors in question that the rule following argument is tracking, or some difference between the two rules, if you don't have something that allows you to say which rule is being followed, then there's no fact of the matter about which rule is being followed, because both outcomes are consistent with either rule being followed, right? On a dispositional view, is to say. So the whole point there is that if you don't posit something over and above the mere dispositional states, then there's not a fact of the matter about which rule is being followed. And if you accept that things like beliefs are normative, then what that would entail a self-contradictory worldview, because you would say there's no fact of the matter about anything I believe.
yeah, okay. So you do register that the rule following paradox kind of goes hand in hand with the private language argument, right?
I mean, I'm aware of the original context, but I don't see how it's relevant to particular implementation that we're using.
Right.
Well, it's
right.
it's relevant. It's relevant because the whole issue with the rule following paradox is interpretation. How you interpret symbols given as a
Right,
natural
but that's
language
just
speaker.
irrelevant, right? Because Jack even talks
It's
about
not
this. That's
irrelevant.
Wait, Yuri, let Josh respond to that.
Yeah, that's completely irrelevant to the argument, so I don't understand
exactly.
what you're
Well,
Yeah, and that's
you're
why
just saying
Jack.
that it's
That's
irrelevant.
why. Wait,
That's
wait.
not an
That's why
argument.
Jack
Saying that
says.
it's irrelevant is
I've
not an
read.
Yuri,
argument.
Look.
shut
I've read
up.
Wittgenstein's. I've read Wittgenstein's and Kripke's
Sure
analysis of
you have.
Wittgenstein's rules and private language, right? And
Right.
Jack only told me to read to page 52, which I read exactly too, right? Because after page 52, Jack believes Wittgenstein is confused on the matter, right? The argument is sufficient all the way till page 52, which is I think is sufficient reading, right? That's what Jack even talks about this.
Okay. So for one, Josh, just simply
Congratulations for
saying that
reading a
it's
book,
irrelevant
Yuri.
is not an argument. But
Well,
maybe
it is
we can.
irrelevant if we're
Maybe.
presenting the argument in that way to
Okay,
show
but
how
it's
delusional
not
Yuri,
it is.
irrelevant
Yuri,
on
Yuri,
virtue of you
Yuri.
saying that it's
Do you
irrelevant.
see how that like? But you see when you do that, you're like derailing it a little bit, making them be able
Look,
to
there are
like, get
sets
out
of
the critique.
Right, but Joshua
there are
was
sets of things that
already
I can
Yuri,
stated that.
stop, Yuri, stop.
I'll just explain why it's irrelevant. Okay, so there has to be something in virtue of which one rule is being followed rather than another. That thing can't be merely dispositional because the states in question are also dispositional. So you'll get some sort of infinite regress of dispositions all the way back, all of which are consistent with variant rules or deviant rules. So it can't be
Well, I
something.
don't know what that means. What do you mean consistent with deviant rules?
So any phenomenon in question is going to be consistent with an infinite number of rules. Because rules are the types of things that are normative, that means that if you fail to be in accord with a rule, you can still get the outcome. So if you're familiar with quaddition and addition, right? There's this idea that if you're following the addition rule, then when you sum 26 and 26, you should get 52. But if you're following the quaddition rule, what you should do quum would be the word. 26 and 26, you get the number 4, right? If you're following the
Yeah,
quaddition rule.
I understand this.
Right, so if a person writes the number 4, they could be following the quaddition rule and doing it accurately, or they could be
Yeah.
doing the addition rule and doing it inaccurately. So there's a question about what determines what rule they're following.
Well, so this is where I think you're misunderstanding the rule following paradox, because that problem isn't one for the agent. It's for those trying to interpret the symbols that were written by the agent.
And that's irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant because the
Look,
question here,
I'm not
like you
interested.
came in a little bit late. Let me
Look,
just
I'm gonna-
clarify for you real quick, Josh.
Let me explain why it's irrelevant. Presumably, you think that there's a fact of the matter about what rule is being followed in those cases, right? And if there's a fact of the matter, irrespective of how we go about interpreting it or how anybody interacts with any other agents, irrespective of that, there has to be something in virtue of which one rule is being followed rather than the other, right? And so the question is, what is it in virtue of which one rule is being followed rather than? And if you appeal to
Okay.
further physical facts, then you can just generate a rule following paradox for those physical facts. So if you generate a rule following paradox for those physical facts, once again, the normativity is underdetermined by the dispositional aspects of whatever states of affairs is going on. And so you just go on ad infinitum. So that means that there has to be some sort of non-dispositional thing in virtue of which there's a fact of the matter about what rule is being followed.
And the reason that you're saying that we should favor intentional realism over some sort of like skepticism on relations is because this is a solution to a regress problem on out of accord rule states?
Well, I don't think that it's just a solution to the regress problem. I think that assuming that it's the case that it can just be countenanced in terms of dispositional properties, I think what the rule following argument shows is that there's no fact of the matter about what rule is being followed because you could generate the same predictions, variant rules, and certain other factors, right? And so if you can generate the same predictions, then there's no fact of the matter about which rule is being followed. And if beliefs are things that are normative, then there would be no fact of the matter about what belief you're holding about the rule following paradox or intentionality or anything else. So I take it to be just a
Sure.
standard sort of argument about self-defeat. So you just
Well,
have a self-defeating worldview.
so on the view of my interpretation of eliminative materialism, this is not a problem, especially if you bring in something like ontic structural realism, because
Well, I
just
don't even
because
know. Well, I don't even know what it means for there to be a problem on eliminative. So
well, because on the view of an eliminative materialist, you can't have these so-called non-physical effects like intention.
yeah, but you can't. I don't know how you can have
Right.
anything on eliminativism. So
Well, I, I agree. This is what leads me to like monism. I don't these things are not a problem for me. I don't think that one can be in or out of accord with some rules because I don't assent to there being rules in the sense
They
that you're using the term.
believes he doesn't have any beliefs.
Well, it's that again, Jovan, the word belief has no cognitive content. So saying that I do or do not have beliefs, both of those statements are equally vacuous. So to say that I believe I don't have beliefs is not saying anything.
Well, what does that even mean? That's just gibberish. That's just
It's
fucking
not gibberish. It is not gibberish.
Wait,
But
wait. So when you say that you take a belief, not the content, then why would you use the word belief? Like what you're saying is
You're
vacuous.
saying you believe that a belief has no cognitive content.
What's the point of saying belief?
For pragmatic sake.
Pragmatic sake regarding what?
All
regarding action, like
Josh, do you
like
understand what he's saying, man?
are open questions. Yeah, there are open questions in my mind of what the reason for this symptom that we would call consciousness existing is for. I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Now
you're
just going on.
It's well, yes, this is a tangent that you
Wait,
are
what do you
asking
call
me
these?
to provide.
Pause again.
Okay.
What do you call these things in your mind if not beliefs?
This is not in relation to the rule following paradox, which is what I would prefer to talk about. Okay.
Wait.
So on the view of an intentional realist who says that because no given rule, right, this completely semantic, categorical, error-prone definition of rule, right, because one cannot be said to be in or out of accord with any given rule simply by virtue of some observed physical state, that we should accept that that necessitates some type of non-physical, non-dependent variable called intentions. Okay, that to me seems to be. Did I render that wrong?
I mean, you just can't even you can't even criticize anybody on that view because nobody could be out of accord with anything. So what would you be criticizing? You know, it's not as if they should modify their behavior to be in accord with some rule or some, you know, like epistemic rule or pragmatic rule or anything.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of like the is-ought fallacy?
I mean, you can't even engage in a conversation on that view.
I mean, yeah, it would ultimately be like a deontic nihilistic state, yeah. But I don't have a problem with deontic nihilism, and I don't know
Do
why.
you believe that you don't have a problem with it?
Wait, no, we already wait. Go ahead, Josh. What were you going to say?
Now, I mean, insofar as it would seem to give us some type of utility towards some optimization condition to adhere to some deontology, I'm willing to consider that. But I personally don't.
Everything he says is meaningless. I just don't. What's the point?
Right.
Well, what is meaning?
Right? What the fuck are you saying if you don't? What the fuck are you even saying right now?
So,
wait,
nothing
nothing,
can
wait. If you're saying
I'll
that nothing
explain.
you say has
Do
any
you just want an explanation, or do you just want to laugh about it?
Wait, no, I'm not laughing.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
I mean,
Method, hold on.
So
Method,
my
hold on,
explanation,
Wait,
my
so
explanation.
if nothing you.
Oh
if
no!
you
Everybody
wait,
just.
hold on, babe.
Oh wow!
Wait, hold on. I was trying to talk.
Jerry, chill.
And you overtalked me. I'm not. I'm chill.
I've
I'm
been
I'm
asked
talking
a
calm.
question by three different
Yuri,
fucking
sit
people now.
down and shut up.
Babe, you're not even a part of Ace. You're not even a part of this conversation, man.
Look, just shut up. Let's hear what Vade
Hey,
has to
you
say
don't get to
without
tell
you
people to shut up.
spurting
Shut
out.
up, hey.
Yeah, just mute
So,
him.
so
Mute him.
on,
He's
on
worthless.
the
Just
view,
mute him.
on
Mute him.
don't mute.
I was
don't.
really interested in the conversation that was going on. So can we just get back to that, please?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Vade.
All right. So my explanation, all right, to answer like, well, why this or why that? Okay, well, there exists some non-zero probability that I'm wrong. So that's, you know, if you're a hard determinist, like, why would you do this? Why would you care? Why would you, you're a hard determinist, right? No, well, yeah, there's some non-zero probability that things aren't hard determined. So it befits me as a supposed agent in view of some optimization condition, which would seem to be desirable for some indeterminate reason, since I don't believe in truth, but some type of coherentist view on existence, right, of who I am as a person with my motivations, aims, desires, beliefs, those kinds of things, which I ultimately cannot say exist. All right, it would
Right.
be
You
it would
agree
be
that everything you
intellectually
just said is
dishonest for me
meaningless.
to claim that they exist. All
Right.
right.
You
God
agree
damn,
that everything
Jovan,
you just said
shut
is
up,
meaningless, right?
Jovan, shut up and
Wait,
like,
but
Hey,
if
shut
Vade is
up.
saying,
shut
but
up, Jovan.
why are we let
Ace, you're
Vade is
not
not even a
helping the
part of the conversation.
conversation
Mute
just
him.
by
You're
shut.
not
Just mute him. Just
either.
mute
Ace,
him, Joe.
You
stop.
are not.
Ace, stop.
If he overtalks you again, just mute him.
How
Why
about
why is it
you
hold
let the
on, wait a
conversation
minute.
flow?
Wait a minute. Why is it that my opposition can have as many people entreat on their side as they like, but Ace wants to entreat on my position and
Yeah,
he's not
let
allowed and
me
should be
answer that.
muted?
Yeah, let me
He's
answer
not
that.
intruding on your position. He's just saying shut up.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Method. You are
Yeah,
very astute.
because you're
Because the
not
people, hey,
adding
stop
you're not
interrupting. Hey,
adding
stop interrupting.
anything
Hey,
to the
stop
discussion, Jovan.
interrupting.
Let's go
Ace,
back to the
Mute
stop.
him. Mute
discussion.
him.
Ace,
Mute
please
him.
stop
Let's
interrupting. Ace,
look.
please
Please
stop
give
Let's go back
Ace
interrupting.
a
to
chance to
the
speak and
Shut
see if
up,
he has
Vade.
anything to
Guys,
All
say.
right,
guys,
all right.
everybody
Shut up.
stop. Jeez, what's wrong with you
Everybody,
guys?
tell Ace to stop interrupting Tom.
Well, you just keep repeating the same thing over and over. You're just
To stop interrupting?
Yes. Nobody
Tom,
wants
how
to
many
listen to that
times?
either.
This is
Let's
just a
just let
limited
Ace
materialism gangbang.
Tom,
Come
it's
on.
either I mute him right away and people get upset, or I keep telling him to stop
why
and
can't he
eventually mute him.
offer some additional information? Maybe there's something that he can offer that I haven't
What the
considered
fuck
or
are
that
you?
you
What do
haven't
you
Can I
considered.
mean?
finish
Maybe there's
answering
something
your
he can
question?
offer. You
Can
don't
I
even
finish?
believe in epistemic norms. The
Can
fuck
I
are you even
finish
saying?
answering Vade's question? He asked why Ace was being silenced, but the other people weren't. The answer is because the other people are asking actual questions, while Ace is literally just telling everybody to shut up and only for Vade to talk.
No, that's not what he was saying. He wanted to offer some type of
Oh my
additional
god.
information. He wanted to elaborate on some position I
He
had
was just
provided.
saying shut up.
Ace, did you actually have anything you
Look,
wanted to provide?
there was a little bit that I wanted to add, but for the most
Wow.
but
That
for the
doesn't sound
most
very
part,
encouraging, Ace.
look,
Ace, you better fucking have something to say.
look, for the most part, I'm just interested, like Michael, in the discussion going on and minutia not being focused on by Jovan and Yuri.
Right.
Okay,
So
well,
back to what
yeah,
I was
that
saying, or asking Vade. So Vade, if we were to take a proposition, right, like it could be any proposition, like it's raining outside, right? As an eliminativist, if you don't believe that proposition has any, you're non-cognitivist about that proposition, or you don't believe that proposition has any cognitive effect, right? Then what's the point of holding to propositions, or how do you interpret propositions to be true or false under that view?
well, under that view, there is no true or false, but we can develop, like truth values. Like we can play pretend, right? We can imagine that there could exist some condition that would resolve to true. And again,
What
as
would
a
be that
Bayesian
condition?
epistemologist,
Wait, what would be that condition?
it's just some empirical fact.
What the fuck is an empirical fact if you don't believe in epistemic norms?
Exactly.
Yeah, well,
What
so
are you even saying right now?
well, it seems contradictory, right? But it really isn't. Like if you actually like be charitable and try to actually
Well, it
think
can't
about it a
seem
little
like
bit, like
anything because if I seem something, I'd be implying that I have consciousness.
There we go.
yeah, right. And I don't think that you can actually give a strong case for consciousness.
Right, we did in the rule following argument. You're just saying
No,
that
you
doesn't account
didn't.
for eliminativism,
The
and
rule
now we're
following
critiquing
argument
eliminativism.
definitely is not a cogent account of consciousness.
Josh just came in and fucking wrecked you on,
No, he
right?
didn't.
Do you want us to bring him back in? Right, because you already
Go
conceded, right?
ahead, yeah.
And that's why we're having a
Because
conversation. That's why
listen,
we're having a conversation about
Yuri,
eliminativism, and you're defending eliminativism.
Yuri,
Go ahead.
simply okay. I registered everything Josh said, and I related it back to him accurately of what he was saying about that you cannot assume that any given rule is in or out of accord with physical states. Okay, and I gave an additional commentary on why that doesn't rule out naturalism. Okay, it could be the fact of the matter that all of that is merely some manifestation of a physical property that we don't know about. Now he calls
Right,
it a
and that's why
regression problem.
That
we're
wouldn't even
talking
make
to
sense.
you.
Stop
Yeah, that's why
talking
we're
for a
talking to
fucking
you
second,
now.
Yuri. Stop talking, okay?
That wasn't me.
It could be the case that there really is some infinite regress in that problem, okay? But he just he presupposes that it's a regress. There could in fact be some base case. I don't actually believe there to be a base case. And this is kind of what I thought that Ace was going to talk about when I mentioned ontic structural realism. I thought that he was saying, oh, Vade, you forgot to mention this about ontic structural realism, okay? Because in our discussions of ontic structural realism, one of the things that that I mentioned is I didn't think that ontic structural realism really gave us any pragmatic purchase on truth, right? And he pointed out, yeah, well, it's not an epistemic model; it's an ontology. And you know, I personally kind of believe that ontology should eventually graduate into giving us some type of purchase on epistemic issues. But under ontic structural realism, right, these relationships. Hold on, dude, I'm almost done. Under ontic structural realism, there doesn't seem to be anywhere where you would arrive at some base case for these relations being constructive on identities, okay? Now, that's not to say that it doesn't exist, just that it's incomputable. So
Wait,
for
how can you
Josh to
determine
come
what's
in,
incomputable? Wait, how can you determine what's incomputable under a limit?
Just stop, okay? For Josh to come in and say that, just presuppose that there's this infinite regress issue with indeterminacy regarding being in or out of accord with physical states, right? It could in fact be the case that there's a bottom and that we are just not amenable to seeing. And this is what I said about information. Stop.
We're trying to get to that
Stop.
bottom.
This is what I'm saying. Look, this is what I'm saying about information hiding, okay? That your position as a intentional realist relies on some information hiding. That you're all you're going to say is that, well, we can't see what's in this black box, so we're going to pretend that black box doesn't exist. And I'm not willing to say that. I'm not willing to say that black box doesn't fucking exist because I can't see inside it.
But you said
but then then your whole position just becomes incoherent. Like literally,
exactly.
all you're saying right now is gibberish.
No, actually, it becomes even more coherent because on that view, that's what develops in my mind into monism.
It becomes more coherent. You don't even believe in
becomes more
coherency.
coherent on virtue that.
Hold on, right? You said that you could distinguish between ontologies and identities. How can you do that on a limitivist view if you don't even have a foundation and you're still trying to find the base? But you claim,
Well, so for ontic structural realism, the case would be that it gives us purchase on identities because instead of looking for what an object is, we simply construct it in virtue of its relationships. So
that's just
that
vacuous.
way
That's just
oh,
vacuous.
really? Really, it's vacuous?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, that's
because
vacuous.
what the fuck are you constructing if you don't have? What are you constructing?
You can say thanks, Yuri, but that's not an answer to my question. I don't want to
You're
vacuous answer.
constructing a category, for fuck's sake.
What are you constructing? What are you constructing?
A category.
Specific norms.
A category.
What is a category?
Excuse me? You can't all talk at once.
Method asked the same thing I asked, so Method, you go.
What is a category?
A collection of relationships.
Okay, so do you believe that there are collections of relationships?
I believe that one can take some local variable on the monad and construct a category.
Okay, so
That's
you
just
have
vacuous
beliefs.
again. He just keeps
So
saying
you have
vacuous
beliefs.
shit.
So you have beliefs, right?
I mean, we can say that I have beliefs, but ultimately that would be a category error because the entire notion of
Wait, how would it be
again,
a
under
category
this
error if we're
monist
working
view,
within your
is a
category?
category.
We're working within your category.
What is a
And it's an
category error?
error-prone category.
Okay, what
Wait,
a
so you
category
admit
error
that it's
means is
incoherent.
categories don't even make sense. Category errors don't even make sense in your view because in your view you can't be out of or in accordance. When you say that something's a category error, you mean it's out of
You can't be in or out of accord. Right. So on the view, like, do you understand? Do you understand existential monism?
Is that what you're
I mean,
affirming?
do you even understand substance monism?
Yes.
Like, let's
this
just
is
use
all
the
just-
weak
Substance
case.
monism is that they're bare particulars.
Look, these are all just irrelevant ways of Vade
That seems to
obfuscating
be
for not answering our
incoherent.
question.
No,
Look,
it
this
isn't.
is
but-
just only.
Oh, listen to Yuri. Little Yuri. He's so confused that now he has to say that I'm just not saying anything of value.
But you already admitted that you weren't saying you don't believe in value, so by your own account you aren't saying anything of value.
Well, I believe in one value.
Okay, so you have
What?
beliefs
Go ahead,
and you
Michael,
believe
go
in
ahead.
value.
Wait, you believe in a normativity?
Yeah, insofar as I'm able to reason about the world.
Oh
as
my God.
incoherent as that actually
Wow,
is.
so there was no disagreement.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let
He
me give
believes
you
in
the case,
normative
and let
states.
me give you the constructive case for what I'm saying, okay? So we start off with the monad, right? This is simply some indeterminate function, under transform, okay? Now, we, as supposed agents, we will never be privileged to understand the totality of that transform, ever. It's impossible. And you can read an account of this in Gödel's second incompleteness theorem. But so we have this continuum that we would call the monad, and in actual orthodox physics we would just call space-time, or the space-time continuum rather. And Ace has some things to say about this, and maybe he'll jump in. But so we have this space-time continuum, right, that we don't actually know the topology of, and we don't know the base case for, but we can say that it exists because we're observing it. And we can't say why or how for we're observing it. We don't know what consciousness is. It's a hard problem, right? It's called the hard problem of consciousness. But on my view, there exists this continuum. I can at least say that much. Now, I'm a skeptic on that view, right? But I still, for all intents and purposes, can say that I'm observing it, all right? Even though I might be wrong, even though I might not even have consciousness, and I can't explain what this is. 1 second.
Jesus Christ, man, this is all just gibberish.
So what I would have expected somebody defending the eliminativist position to do is to affirm that truth exists, but say something really weird like truth is deflationary.
No, I
Right.
don't affirm that truth exists. I will never affirm that truth exists, but
Yeah,
I do
I know,
affirm,
that's why I'm saying it's weird.
so I do affirm that in the constructivist sense that we can develop a truth value for some given empirical proposition. Okay.
Wait, how do you determine how that value has any truth?
Okay, well, I'm sorry I got interrupted, but I'll continue the constructivist argument from monism. So we have this space-time continuum that has these what you would call law-like relations, which are robust, or at least seem to be. Now, I can actually make arguments that maybe they're not so robust, but we'll just go along with the idea that it seems to be the case that we can observe things repeatedly and they always resolve to some given condition, all right? So that being the case, it would seem to be that we can apply an ontology to this model of the monad. Now, we, as embodiments of this monad, just being some, local variable over the entire monadic structure, right? We can't say to have our own discrete identities because we're just some arbitrary collection of whatever this stuff is that the monad is made out of. Which is interesting to me that you all were like really amenable right away to substance monism, right? So if we're all the same fucking stuff, right, then how is it that we're not all the same fucking thing as well? Because if we're going to say that...
Wait, it just seems like, what do you mean it seems
Wait,
to
hold
be
a
the
second.
case?
This is irrelevant.
Well, you said it seems to be.
Yeah,
Gary, there's so many problems with what he just said. I thought of the same thing too when he said it seems to be the case. He's already creating an issue, but there's like so many problems with this.
What is the problem with saying seems to be?
Okay,
You're just
so
using
are you gonna
seemings as an epistemic justifier, but you can't do anything in epistemology because you're an epistemological nihilist.
Yes,
exactly.
I'm an epistemological nihilist
So
by
why are you saying
necessity.
seemingness?
I think epistemological
Look,
nihilism...
I'm an epistemological nihilist too, but
here's the thing: is I assume that anybody who's intellectually honest and has enough fucking cognitive capacity to actually think about the problem is, on the base case, an epistemological nihilist, right? It's the same thing with solipsism, right? Like anybody who rejects solipsism are being, they're being edgy, right? Like it's an indefeasible position, and indefeasible positions that seem at least logically coherent should at least be accepted, okay? But since like saying, solipsism all the time, this or that, right? It doesn't get us anywhere, right? So we're going to pretend like, okay, let's just put solipsism aside because that's boring to talk about all
Why
the time.
wouldn't you do the same thing with
So-
epistemic nihilism? Then?
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm a
you
Bayesian
believe in epistemic,
epistemologist.
so you're affirming epistemic norms to put epistemic nihilism
Yes,
aside. Right?
I'm
Right.
affirming epistemic
Okay,
norms
so then
on the view
you're
of...
gonna have to
wait,
agree
how
with the
can,
position then.
well, Meppo,
I-
what's bizarre,
I'm-
Meppo, is that how
wow,
can he have
holy
epistemic
fuck,
norms
man.
without being an
Well, exactly.
He can't
but
have
he's-
epistemic
wait a second,
norms.
Yuri. He's just conceding at this point because now he's saying I'm just gonna take these epistemic norms, which is the position.
Yeah, but I can still hold them and still understand they're ad hoc and
Yeah, but,
have
like,
no actual
nobody
truth.
disagrees with this. I don't even.
Yeah.
disagree
Okay.
with this.
Good. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, but
good.
you were
That's
saying
good.
something. Yeah, but
That's
you were
good.
arguing. You were arguing against epistemic norms 5 minutes ago.
Well, I'm not arguing against epistemic norms as having some indeterminate truth value. I'm saying that epistemic norms
Wait,
aren't true.
but you don't believe in truth,
That's all
right?
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that's not coherent though. That doesn't make any sense. What does
It
it
is
mean for an
coherent.
epistemic norm? No, it isn't. What does it mean for an epistemic norm to not be true?
Right, they're
How
necessarily true by
how
definition.
can so tell me, where is ultimate truth derived in ad hoc error-prone category?
Wait, are you
Where
asking
is
for
it
my theory?
coming from?
Wait, are you asking? Wait, are you asking? Are you simply asking for my theory of truth?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a correspondence theorist,
Okay. Can you elaborate on that?
so I just believe that truth is that which comports with reality. That's what it means to be a
Yeah,
correspondence.
which is question begging, right? And that's okay.
Wait, how is that question begging?
How's the question begging?
What do you
Wait,
mean
hold
by
on. The better
reality?
question. Wait,
That-
hold on, Method.
definition.
The better question to ask is, what question does it beg?
Reality.
Wait, you deny
Holy
reality?
fuck.
Wait, how do you deny reality? What are you talking about? You're saying that the external world doesn't exist.
I haven't seen any proof.
Is somebody recording this?
Wait,
Okay.
so someone please record
Okay,
this.
but
Hold on.
you're looking at it right now.
Yeah, so when I see this tree right here, right? Wait, I know the argument's going to run right, but the argument he's going to run is irrelevant to there being reality, right? Even under his own view. So it's
It
just
doesn't.
stupid.
It doesn't matter because he's just outright being irrational after like putting all this weight in the one value that he says is
Man,
that
I'm
he has,
proud I'm an
which is
intentional realist.
rationality. So like if you don't think the external world exists, why are you acting irrationally
Well,
and
I didn't
engaging with it?
say I didn't actually say that I don't think the external world exists. Where did I ever
Yes,
say
you
that?
did.
Yeah,
No,
I was
no, I
going to
didn't.
ask a clarifying question, Vade.
Literally
Were
affirmed
you
it.
trying to say?
I
Were
did
you
not
trying to
affirm
say
it.
something? Vade, were you trying to say something like you don't have certainty, or that you can't have certainty that it exists, or you can't prove it exists in the sense of like some type
Well,
of
I
deductive?
didn't. Yeah, since I haven't said anything at all, I don't need to clarify the position. All I said is that his view was question begging on reality. And then he says, "So you don't think reality exists?" And I said, "I haven't seen any conclusive proof." That doesn't mean to say that I don't think that it does it?
Yeah, if you take any substance to be the case, you're gonna have to affirm metaphysical realism or like hold with like
Sure,
some
but I
really
can
weird.
still remain skeptical on the view that it might.
Yeah, so am
But
I.
that would just
I
be
don't.
Yeah, okay,
irrelevant.
okay,
I don't.
good, good,
Nobody has an
good.
issue with being
Right,
skeptical,
yeah,
but it
and I
seems like
said
you're
it's
doing
question
it.
He
begging.
made the
Right,
claim,
I
but
said it's
Vade made the
question
claim
begging.
that correspondence
Yeah,
theorism was begging the question. And I
yeah,
asked him, what
on
question
reality.
doesn't... Right, but you already affirmed reality. You're not denying reality. You're just skeptical
Yeah,
about
but
it. So I don't understand how it begs the question.
when you say your theory of truth is that which corresponds with reality, right?
Wait, do you
And all
believe
I'm
in
saying,
reality, Vade? Do you believe in reality?
I don't believe in truth. I can tell you
Wait,
that.
no, I'm not worried about that. I understand, but you're just using belief for semantical reasons. I'm just asking, do you believe in reality, or do you accept reality, pragmatic?
Yeah, I accept reality pragmatically.
Okay, then it can't beg the question.
Yeah, but I don't
right there.
accept
If we
truth.
both
I don't accept truth in virtue of reality. That's
No,
the
wait,
that's
you
the thing
made
I'm
one
saying.
claim. Look, you made one claim and you said correspondence theorism begs the question, right? And if we both believe, it doesn't matter pragmatically or not, if we both believe or grant that reality exists, then I don't see how it begs the question.
Well,
I look like an insane person right now. An old woman just looked at me and I'm yelling. Oh my God.
yeah, but here's the thing: is I am not using this question begging on reality as some basis for my truth. So, like, I'm okay question begging on reality just for the pragmatic sense of saying, okay, now we have existence.
Wait,
Let's
what's
do
pragmatism?
analytical operations upon it, right? All I'm pointing out is that
Wait,
to
how
base
can you be
your theory of
how can you be
truth on something that that itself
Okay.
is indeterminate or incoherent, even perhaps.
You seem to be wanting to take two positions at once. You seem to look. You can't. The issue that we're having here is I think we might believe the exact same thing, but you seem to want to play it both ways. So either you're gonna you're gonna just be a skeptic and just hold the skepticism and say I don't know, or you're gonna take some epistemic norms to be true instrumentally. And if you're taking epistemic norms to be true, then you're already agreeing with their position. So I'm not really sure what this is.
Yeah, I don't know either, and that's kind of the case that I'm at. Is it seems
That
that
was the
we're in
most
broad
troll answer you
agreement
could have
about.
given.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It seems to me that we're in broad agreement about a great number of things, except for intentions being, I don't know, fucking Yuri. You can give the dogmatic spiel on intentions, right? Like
Right,
I'm
yeah,
just,
but in Method is already well versed on this. We've taught him what intentions are, and he knows, and Vic has had conversations with him, so he can present the view. I feel
yeah,
confident that he can present it accurately.
yeah.
I don't feel
So
confident. Come here, Yuri, do it.
Okay, I'll do it then if you want me to. What question do you have, Vic?
well, I mean, let's just go back to the earlier discussion we had about the rule following paradox, right? So
Right, but wait, just real
again,
quick before we do this, do you affirm that my view on correspondence theory isn't begging the question if we both agree that reality exists,
well,
pragmatically or not?
sure, sure. I
Okay,
think
cool.
there's actually some subtlety there where there is an objection because of the qualitative nature of the proposition that you gave, that being a theory of truth rather than just some ad hoc, agreement for pragmatic purposes. Although I guess you could render it that way, but that's a very weak form of truth, I would say, right? Because it
Okay.
seems to me that your theory of truth, you're saying that there exists some ultimate truth, or that something is true and not just truth valueful or something like that, right?
Well, I'm just a content externalist, right? So I take beliefs to be independent of the self. So, for example, like the tree being the leaves on the tree being green outside, I would take that to be true because it comports with reality. For
You
example.
misspoke, Yuri. Hang on.
Oh,
It's
go
not
ahead.
that beliefs
Clear up what
are.
I said.
It's not. It's not that beliefs are independent of the self. It's just that there is something external that is causally efficacious having you
Right.
for you having those beliefs.
Right. My bad. What Michael said.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a lot of disconnect there on what's external. So, but we don't have to go through that.
Doesn't that like commit yourself to either Platonism or some form of?
I am a Platonist.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is my biggest issue.
Yeah, some form of realism. Yeah.
Wait, how could you be a Platonist?
This all just comes down to the
Yeah, that's
internal
what
and
I just said.
external distinction.
Wait.
You're presupposing that there's an internal.
Wait, if you say you're a Platonist, doesn't that mean you believe in their particulars?
No, I'm just a realist when it comes to numbers and mathematics. And
Okay. Well, no, that still seems like you'd be affirming some like, wait, what are numbers? Like, what are they?
Yeah, trust me, dude. I've gone through this fucking shit with him
This
a lot.
is this is a really interesting conversation, but yeah, it's kind of a tangent. I'd like to.
Apologies.
If you guys don't mind.
yeah,
No, it's all right.
we'll explain why we're Platonists when we get back the whole here.
All right, go ahead.
Why?
Because we can have people there who are Platonists accurately. Because we fucking said so, Vade. That's
Yeah,
So,
we're
yeah,
democratic centralists.
So just on the view of being an intentional realist, right? Again, I'll just give it in the sense in context of the rule following paradox, okay? Just because there seems to be some infinite regress problem of rules versus intentions, right? And the question of being in or out of accord, that doesn't mean that there isn't an actual base case. All right.
right. I
So
don't think anyone's claiming that, right? But under
well,
your view,
an intentional realist is making that claim.
Look, under your view, right, it doesn't matter anyway because everything is just dispositional, so you can't be in or out of a court with anything, right? The intentional realist is just saying he can account for truth propositions or value properties, right? That's all he's saying.
But even if I accept, right, and this is why I didn't want to go through this whole thing about the rule following paradox. Okay, we only went down that rabbit hole because you keep thinking that the rule following paradox is a defeater for naturalism. I have given you a case where it isn't. Just because there exists some supposed regress doesn't mean that. Oh fuck! Not again.
Wait, no, but you already admitted that your view can't account for naturalism. Your view can't account for naturalism either, making naturalism false. Because
Listen,
you can't
they're being no.
true.
Listen. No, just because there doesn't seem to be a quantifiable base case does not mean that there is not. okay? And it could be that there exists some type of effect in the continuum that is circular but causative.
That's just
All right?
vacuous, Michael. What he
Well,
just said was just
this
vacuous.
is my quandary on solipsism, okay? So look, buddy, just because you
can't just
can't
say
fucking
vacuous
find
things,
the
though.
information that gives you the basis for the rule doesn't mean that there doesn't exist
I
one,
can.
okay?
You can't as an eliminativist, right?
No,
I will
you
probably
can't. You
give
can
you.
assert it. You can presuppose it, but that's okay. If
I'm
you
not
want to be a
presupposing it.
presuppositionalist, that's fine.
I'm not a
You are a
presuppositionalist.
presuppositionalist. You
I'm
are
not. You're the one
presupposing.
making the claim. I'm
You
just
are
using your words.
presupposing. You and Josh and Michael and the rest of you people who are intentional realists are presupposing that there exists no base case for physical phenomenon. That is what you are fucking presupposing.
Well, we can't presuppose that because that's an epistemic issue, right? We're talking about a conceptual
Wait,
issue.
when he says base case, does he mean very particular?
Bare particular would
I don't even know.
qualify.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I have a
Wait,
question.
when you say base case, what are you talking about?
So a base case of the rule that always resolves to true and isn't constructive. So it's a base
aren't
case.
you saying there isn't a base case?
I'm saying that it's indeterminate whether or not there is one. It's an incomputable problem. But just because it's incomputable doesn't mean it can be said not to exist.
How is this any different from the skeptic view?
Right, but under his view,
It
he
is
couldn't
a
find the base
skeptic's
case
view,
anyway.
yeah.
So
Wait,
just
if this is a skeptic's view, then this is just you're saying nothing. Then I don't.
Yeah, well, so this is the kind of a fucking problem with presuppositionalism, right? It's the case that all skepticism on presuppositions are just going to be skeptical views.
Wait, but under me and Methode's view, right? We're not presuppositionalists, but
Okay,
Yeah, I don't-
that doesn't mean that you
Lisa's
aren't
like-
presupposing something.
So,
if I can
Yuri,
give you,
this-
if I can give
we're
you
not
a case which could be true in some given universe, and you want to exclude those universes from your presuppositions, then you're just a fucking dogmatic presuppositionalist.
Wait, when you say hold on a second, when you say universe, do you mean possible world?
Yeah, possible world. Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't make any sense because in order to have a possible world, it would have to be in accord with epistemic norms. So it doesn't even make any sense.
right.
Yeah, but you
like
are.
Modal, like things like modal epistemology,
I don't
conceivability,
know,
details,
what the fuck do you
things
mean?
like that.
I'm showing that your own logic is inconsistent.
Right,
if
but
you
we can
hold to
distinguish
epistemic
between a true and
norms,
false proposition.
oh my god! See, this is where we come to a lot of difficulty. Is when I'm trying to attack your view, you keep coming back on me and saying, "Well, what you just said doesn't make sense in your view." But we're not discussing my view. We're discussing intentional realism and whether or not intentional realism is internally consistent. Why the fuck am I getting talked over so fucking goddamn much?
Can I ask
You
a
ramble
question,
lot,
Vade?
and it's not very informative. Look, dude, every single time you ask a question or you give
Cam,
some
go
kind
ahead,
of
man.
complaint, some kind of complaint of
We
our
need
view,
some calm, rational person.
you're either assuming something to be true that already affirms our view, or you're saying gibberish.
Yeah, well, I can say that I assume something to be true in your worldview. Now, in
Okay,
virtue of that
so then
being
you
true,
disagree to the
wouldn't there
worldview.
exist something that's contradictory to that view?
No,
and
there
on this
isn't.
view, I'm saying that could there exist some possible world where there does indeed exist a base case
Yeah,
for
there
physical
can't,
phenomena?
because that possible world couldn't exist because it would be in violation of epistemic norms.
How would it be in violation of epistemic
Okay,
norms?
so a possible world entails that it's a world that holds some set of like rules to be true, something like the laws of logic. Or so when I say there's a possible world in which I'm saying there's like some hypothetical that's in line with the laws of logic. When you say possible world and you're not affirming epistemic norms, that doesn't mean anything.
No, I am
there is
affirming
no contradiction.
epistemic norms, and I'm
Okay,
saying
so
that
then there
in this
can't be a
possible
possible world
world,
that doesn't have then there can't be a possible world that doesn't have epistemic norms. So there's no contradiction.
Wait, Method.
oh, dude, you're completely confused, man.
Wait, hold on.
Trying to do an
Wait, hold on,
internal.
I want to talk to Method real quick, right?
Yeah,
Method, he
Method,
just
you have
said
no
that-
idea what you're even
Method-
fucking saying right now.
Method, he just said, right, that he believes in epistemic norms, right? But how can he not be an agent if he agrees with epistemic norms,
Oh,
right?
here we go.
Because in
I
order to
just
have-
fucking
no,
addressed
in
this.
order to have
Oh
It's
my
just
God.
another
Yuri,
topic, Yuri. Just hold on.
Yuri,
about
Yuri,
it.
Wait,
Yuri,
Method,
we've already
in order
skipped
to have
past this. Yuri, he's trying to say something even. He's trying to say that our view encourages
No,
contradiction
this sideways
because there
talking's
could be
not
a
gonna work.
possible
Wait,
world.
no, I'm just saying,
Guys,
if I could just,
come
I
on.
was almost done,
Okay,
right?
go.
I was just saying, notice that when he says that he accepts epistemic norms, it necessarily follows from that he's an agent, right? But
Yeah,
he's
no, no,
denying
Yuri,
that.
you're misinterpreting.
I'm
Yuri,
doing an internal
you're
critique.
misinterpreting right now. Yuri, you're misinterpreting.
Oh,
He's
okay, my
saying
bad.
that he's simply saying that he's taking epistemic norms to be true to continue the discussion. He's not actually affirming that he actually accepts them.
Gotcha.
He's saying
Gotcha.
that in our view, there's a contradiction. And I'm saying that when he says that in our view there's a contradiction, it doesn't make any sense. Because he's saying there can be a possible world in which rules aren't true, but it doesn't make any sense.
No,
Because if you're going to have a
no,
possible
that
world,
is
you
not what I
rule.
fucking said. I
That's
said
literally
that
what you just said.
that rules would be true because there would be a base case for the rule. So you could always determine through physical states whether or not somebody was in or out of accord with their
No,
intentions.
because physical states aren't
Holy
normative.
fuck!
No,
Holy fuck! We wasted
Wait a second.
5 fucking minutes on your misinterpretation of my words.
Dude, that doesn't make any sense because if they're physical states, they're not normative. Unless you're going to say that physical states include normative states, which then you just be affirming the position again.
Well, the view would be that the normativity is embodied in the physical states, right? That would be a pure
Okay, so
material eliminative view.
So then you hold the exact same view that we do. Then you're just articulating it.
Can I ask Yuri a question? Yuri.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, I have a response to what he said, but I'd like to hear what you have to say because you've been waiting.
So it's mostly like clarification. I'm wanting to understand more about what you mean or what you mean by accounting for intention and how it is that your view of intention accounts for it.
Me or them?
That's for Yuri.
Oh, okay.
I guess Yuri's not there.
Yuri's not here. Bud.
Or maybe
no,
you, Method.
I'm here. Wait, hold on, I'm here.
Oh, okay, good.
So Yuri, I
What
was
were you
trying to ask what you mean by accounting for, or what does it mean to account for something, and how it is that your view of intentionality accounts for it.
Well, under our view, things can be normative, right? So that means you can be in or out of accord with some standard, right? So things like epistemic norms or things like norms of rationality, right, would be necessarily constitutive of that agent, right? And so I'm saying under our view, we can distinguish between true and false propositions, epistemic norms, and we can be rational with it that way. Under eliminativism, however, if things are just reducible to dispositions,
you don't need to go on to the eliminativism part.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just curious. So when you say constitutive of the agent or whatever it is that you said, you added the word necessarily there. I don't remember which, but like, what do you mean by that? And can you repeat the first part again?
Wait, in order to be an agent, that means, in order to be an agent or have beliefs, that means that there are certain necessary epistemic norms that are there that allow you to have beliefs. That's the idea.
So I asked the question, how do you account for intention on your view? And you said that there are normative statements. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I just take first order intentionality to be constitutive of second order belief. Or basically, I'm just saying.
Yuri, I think you meant when you say. What do you mean when you say first order and second order?
I'm just saying that there's certain beliefs that are first order and there's certain beliefs that are second order, right? So
Yeah,
like
he wants you to define those terms.
So, right. So an example of a second order belief, right, would be something like some sort of belief about a belief, right? So in order for me, so that's the idea.
No, I understand. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you're using them the way that I thought you would. No, that's fine.
Right.
But when we're trying to explain intention or give an account for it, I'm still trying to understand how it is what you've said gives an account for it.
Cam, I mean, this seems to be going rather tangential, which it's okay, but I'd like to answer this other guy first. By the way, what is your name, dude?
Who, me?
Yeah. Oh, Method. Okay.
Method.
Yeah. Okay. So, so you're right that if there were a base case for a rule, that would nullify normativity. But
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're saying there's a base case for a rule, you're already affirming the position. You're just saying that there are some normative properties in
Affirming what
physical stuff.
position?
No, the position that we're trying, intentional realism, or at least
No. If there were a base case for a given rule, that would nullify intentional realism.
no, but you're
Because
saying that the base case.
No, hold on,
Okay, go
buddy.
ahead.
Hold on, man. Look, so as given to me by Josh, okay, intentional realism, at least in relation to the rule following paradox, is that because there is this infinite regress problem of physical relationships where you could never arrive at some ultimate truth of whether or not somebody was in or out of accord with their intentions, therefore intentions are necessary and whatever other bullshit you say about intentions. Yuri, can you give that? Can you give the bullshit on intentions?
Wait, are you just asking? Are you just
Necessary.
Just re-articulate the view.
Yeah, articulate what intentions are. You've got that little spiel. It's the same sentence every time. Intentions are constitutive of beliefs, goals, desires.
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. Well, intentions or first order intentionality is just the idea that you have aims, goals, beliefs, and desires.
Okay, and so that just real quick on your view, how does that factor into the rule following argument? Just to glue that.
Well, we're just saying that the agent, right? The intention, right? In order for the agent to have intentions, right? The rule following argument shows how intentions can't be reduced to the physical because they don't follow a law like that.
Yeah. So what I'm telling you, Method, is that if there existed some base case for some given rule, that you could verify that the rule was in fact true, and not just some infinite regress of indeterminate, in or out of accord states, right? That would nullify intentions on this view.
Okay. So do you think? Oh, you're trying to nullify intentions, not normalize value real.
Yeah, it would nullify intentions.
Okay.
And if you nullify intentions, which seem to be, the fundamental quality for being an agent, well, then everything along with it goes. Like you don't have normativity anymore either.
Oh well, I would just say that we take this to be like I don't know, like a model rather. I don't know. I'm actually curious.
Right.
No, don't say
but
that.
Yuri,
No.
No, because I'm gonna ask. I just want to ask you. So, Yuri, do you think there's a possible world in which there aren't intentions and there aren't these external beliefs, and we're just like
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, because intentions, right? Look, we can conceive of a world where all existential propositions about concrete are false, right? So making intentions not necessary. But for agency, right? And no, wait. In regards to agency, yes, I believe they're necessary for an agent.
So then, why do we need to have agency then? Why can't we just say we don't have agency?
Well, agency just implies that we're all just pea zombies, right?
Yeah, we are just
lack of agency. So I guess you could conceive of a world where they're just pea zombies, right? But they just wouldn't be agents. We're just saying. I'm just saying that intentionality is a necessary property of being an agent, right?
No. But his whole point here is just to say that you don't need intentionality. We could just be pea zombies.
I don't know what relevance that has, but sure, if that's all he's saying.
No, because he's arguing. So the thing is that you might unintentionally have conflated value realism with intentional realism. And his refutation here is simply to say that value realism is intentional realism isn't true, not value realism. So he could still hold the position that there are like epistemic norms, any other norms, just not norms in reference to like intention. So
what does it mean? Wait, what does it mean to have a norm without having an intention? I don't understand what that means.
Wait, you think all norms are intentional?
That's what it means to be normative, right?
Wait,
what does it mean to have an intention that is a norm?
Now this is way weirder than I thought. So wait, you think
what does it mean? Well, under our view, Method, intentions are normal.
Method, I actually took normativity to be extensional to intentionality.
Okay, whoa. So when you say, I just want to get a clarification here. When you say that like, being in or out of accord with like physical states, you take that to be intentional?
That is their definition of intentionality.
Oh, that's fucking wacky. Oh, damn it, I said it again.
Yeah, it is fucking wacky. It's incoherent.
We'll sort this out, man. We'll sort this out when we get to home, man.
It's just really wacky.
We'll talk to Vic or something like that.
That just sounds really wacky.
I don't know why you'd appeal to Vic. At this point, Yuri, I'm starting to think you're smarter than Vic. Which isn't a high bar, but I'm starting to.
This just seems
Well,
like
Vic
really,
taught me
really
everything
lacking.
about this position, so I don't think that's true. Vic knows way more than me.
No, but you could just you could come about like something that's true or
I
false.
said smarter, not more knowledgeable.
Right, but
fair
wait,
enough.
it's just that the idea, right? Well,
Yeah, but, like-
I don't understand what's being disputed anymore, right? It
Okay,
just
let
seems
me
like the
explain.
idea.
There's been something I've been waiting to say for a long time, Yuri, because you said you assented to the idea of a possible world in which there's no agency.
Right, yeah. 'Cause I just take an order
All
to
right.
have intention.
So give me the case where I should reject monism. Because if you accept monism, then oh fuck, that's this world.
Wait, Yuri doesn't understand the argument though. Yuri, do you understand? Do you understand what at least I take to be what he's saying and why I'm actually?
Well, I have an
trying to
idea. I don't know if it makes any sense or not.
Okay, so let me explain. So he thinks that if you're saying that like all these norms are like intentional, that if it's the case that there's some non-natural property that exists in physical objects that isn't reliant on intentionality, and there's some sort of like thing that can or cannot be out of accord, and we just don't have agency, then your view doesn't actually need to be accepted. No actual argument.
Well, he's just describing a pea zombie at that point.
Yeah, he's saying that we could just have a world of pea zombies. So you just could we just be a world of pea zombies?
Yeah, we could. Yeah,
okay,
it's
so why do we take agency to be true?
Because of the actual world.
That's
uninformative. That's uninformative.
Well,
I think you need to go ask Jack about what you should say to that.
Incredibly uninformative.
Well, no, it's just that the rule following argument shows that if we
Oh
could be
fuck, here we go.
Oh my gosh, why are you doing that? Stop.
Well, no, under the under the view, method, hold on,
Okay, go
method, under the view of everything just being pea zombies, right? We wouldn't have these things like norms of rationality or epistemic.
Yeah, we don't have
right?
norms of rationality.
Yeah, we do.
Well, we could just not have them. I don't understand why you.
Guys, I'm gonna bow out now. But
yeah.
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I don't think
Vade,
the
you've run the NPC out of line.
I don't think the argument. Look, the argument is not making the claim.
The dialogue
that
tree is reaching in.
We're not saying that. We're not saying that intentionality.
I just want to figure out why.
We're not saying that agency is some necessary property that exists in all possible worlds, right? No one's saying that.
Okay. Okay, but why would we even say we have agency? I don't understand.
Oh, because of epistemic norms.
Yeah, but why are we even bothering with epistemic norms? It's just saying we have agency.
Oh, you say you're not familiar with the do you know what we take epistemic norms like laws of logic, rationality, and stuff. We take them to be abstract objects.
Okay.
So that means they exist in some realm external to us.
Okay.
That we have access to, making us have beliefs.
Oh, but why would we say we have access? I don't understand why we couldn't just be pea zombies.
Oh, the reason why we couldn't be pea zombies is because of these abstract objects that exist.
How do you know those exist?
How do you know those exist?
Because we have beliefs.
Yeah, that's just begging the question.
Dude,
you're just begging the question.
That's not begging the question. You asked me to make an inference.
No. If you're saying that the reason why we have intentionality is because we have beliefs, that's just saying we have intentionality because we have intentionality. That's not intentionality. So, at least my view of this has always been, it just seems to be something we take to be the case because it seems more plausible than the world in which we don't have agency. Because if we say that we don't have agency, then we can't say we have beliefs. And it just seems like if we're going to say anything or make statements or claim that there are propositions or anything like that, we're going to have beliefs and agency. So we just take agency to be true. Is that incorrect?
No, I don't know if that's the case. I remember Vic talking about this once, and I remember that because Darth Dawkins tried to bring it.
I recall that's what Vic said to me. Vic said it's like something we just take to be true. He literally said something like, we could be pea zombies, but really just true as like an explanatory hypothesis. That's what he said to me in DMs, at least, unless he's trolling.
He also told me that in DMs that the reason why we have beliefs is because of the laws of logic. That's also.
Yeah, that doesn't even disagree with what I just said.
Well, I was just. I gotta think.
Because
About
we
that.
could just take it to be the case that the laws of logic aren't no, I don't want to say not necessarily true, that'd be gibberish. We could just take it to be the case that we don't actually know if the laws of logic. We just have to take them.
Hold on,
It
real
just
quick.
I always assume that's what we were saying when we say that we have agency and intentionality. We just take them to be true because we need them to be true in order to hold beliefs. That's what I thought it was. If that's not the case, I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't just be like.
Yeah, that's what it
an
means for them
agnostic.
to be. That's what it means for them to be axiomatic assumptions. It means that you can't justify them. You just take them to be true because you find them necessary and you think that they're based.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I'm saying. I thought they were
That's
axiomatic
what it
assumptions.
means. Yeah, that is what it is.
Oh well, why is
You're
Yuri
trying to
getting
claim
confused then?
something.
Well, I don't hold the axiom.
He hasn't been programmed with enough lines of code to quite respond to this particular line of inquiry. That's why.
Okay. I want to learn how to run the rule following argument. It seems to be really useful because it seems like if all they need to do is demonstrate that they're epistemic, no one to get somebody to believe in intentionality. That's really useful. Somebody, Yuri, you want to run that? You want to do like a LARP session real quick? Run that on me.
On what?
The rule following argument. I just want to see how exactly.
Well, I'll just give you Jack's version of the argument, right? So.
Okay, go ahead.
So imagine if we have a robot, right? And this robot was programmed by a programmer to go fish bluefish, right? And if it catches a redfish, it returns that redfish back into the lake, right? Now imagine this robot does this task successfully, and then after he does it successfully, he takes the fish home, right? But imagine on his way home, he bumps into a tree, right? And somehow that messes up his hardware or programming, right? And he does the opposite of the task the programmer asked him to do, right? Now, in virtue of what, right, could we say that the robot failed, right? And then we would say that the robot failed in virtue of the programmer's intentions, right? Now, let's say that we have a robot that's completely identical to the last robot, right? But this robot was created by a tornado in a junkyard. All this means is that the tornado, but the robot was created by some natural process or something like that, right? That's all we mean by that.
Okay, I know this.
So in virtue of what then could we say that the robot failed, right? That's the argument. And the argument is to
you would just say it's not failed.
Right,
But
yeah,
you could
exactly.
just, but I don't, but Yuri, why couldn't you just say like the intentions are just dispositional? Like you don't actually believe that there are any roles the person's creating. I should have you guys talk with perspective philosophy because this dude is crazy. He thinks that desires don't exist and you can't have like personal roles. So this would be really funny to run on. But I don't understand why you couldn't just say like there is no actual role. They're just dispositions. I have some like really weird like psychological position that I want the robot to do X, but there's no actual role or fact of them. It's like some position. In fact, I could say something even weirder. I could just say something like I have some emotive disposition in response to some task that I programmed the robot for. I don't actually have it.
Right, but the idea, I think the idea is that because the programmer has intentions, we can say that the robot failed at performing that task, right? But we couldn't say the same thing about the other robot, right? Because the other robot didn't have intentions. But the
we could say the same thing with the motive.
The point of the argument.
Go ahead.
Wait. The point of the argument, right, is to show how intentions are irreducible and how a naturalism can account for intentions. That's the idea of the argument.
Yeah, but you could just easily just say it's dispositional and say the reason why we would say the other robot failed is because it wasn't in line with the person's positions, rather than in line with their.
But remember, under our view, we just take beliefs to be self-evident.
Oh, well, that's just making the question then.
Well, I don't know if that's making the question.
It is. You're just assuming the position.
But wait, I'm getting Jack in here. Jack's in here, so you can ask Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Yo, Jack, are you there, man? This isn't a trap. Yeah. We're not honeypotting you or nothing.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't get one of my comrades.
Yeah, but go ahead, Method. Ask your question regarding the.
Okay, Jack, you there?
Yeah.
All right, so I don't understand why you couldn't just say like it's just dispositional. Why couldn't I just say I have some emotive attitude towards the robot behaving in this way, and when it doesn't behave this other way, I just feel bad. There's no actual there's no out of or in of accord with anything. I feel bad.
That what's dispositional?
The like instead of saying their intentions, you're just saying their dispositional attitude.
He's basically saying, Jack, I ran the rule following argument on it was explained. He wanted me to explain the rule following argument. And his objection was is why couldn't you with the second robot, right? Why couldn't you just say that the robot just has dispositions to act in that way? Or you could just say
So
the
the
robot
person has dispositions.
the
The
person
robot
has,
has no
I'm sorry,
disposition.
right, the person just has dispositions, right? Why do you have to say that the person has to have intentions, right? Without begging the question. That's the idea.
Which person?
Oh, the person
that
who
made the
programmed the robot.
Well, then there'd be no fact of the matter about.
What? You cut out.
That would just be.
Oh,
yeah, he's
no.
cutting out.
Yeah, he's cutting out.
That just means that there's no fact of the matter.
Yeah, get off and push the
Still
talk,
cutting
Jack.
out. Or like leave and rejoin or something. That might work.
I'm sorry about that, Jack, but we couldn't hear you. You cut out again.
They cut out a lot.
That just means that there's no fact of the matter about what human beings believe in or desire.
Yeah, you could say that.
Well, I think if you said it, it would be self-defeating.
Oh, because then you would. Oh, okay. So then you're denying, because you'd be denying beliefs. You wouldn't be able to believe that that's it.
Yeah.
Right, I was telling you that we take beliefs to be self-evident, right? That's what I was saying, man.
But I don't understand. Well, so even in the self-knowledge, at least the review, it explained that even if it's the case that we have some beliefs that are like intentional, we could just have emotional states that aren't intentional. So what if we just had what if we had beliefs, but only about like, I don't know, like epistemic norms, and then about like these like rules for like, I don't know, like building a robot for, those are just, why couldn't that be the case?
It's the nature. It's the nature of beliefs that they're self-known.
Right.
Oh, okay. So if you just concede to beliefs, you're just conceding to. Oh, okay, that makes.
That's what I was trying to say, man.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, when you just say like, whatever. Well, if you should have added something like, well, if you concede to self-knowledge, conceding to self-knowledge of like intentions in other cases. Okay, so Jack, this would just be like, I don't know, like I guess like a pragmatic question. How do we know when somebody's not just lying? Like they're just lying about a rule. Like I could say like I think killing people is out of accord with my desires. I'm really just lying. How do you distinguish between a lie and you can't? Or it doesn't matter?
Yeah,
You're asking me.
Oh, am I cutting out now?
You're asking me how one distinguishes between a lie and a sincere avowal? You mean how does one tell whether somebody is lying? Or do you mean metaphysically? Or do you mean metaphysically? What's the distinction?
What was I saying again? I don't even remember what my question was. What was my question? I was asking about potential states beliefs. Oh yeah, I was asking how would you, not even just what's the metaphysical difference, I'm just asking how can you tell? I mean, I think that, I take the metaphysical difference to be, one is just a statement that's not in accord with their intentions, at least like, what they're proposing with the statement is out of accord with their intentions, not uttering the statement itself. That's what I would take a lie to mean. I'm asking you, how would you distinguish whether somebody's lying or not? I'm not asking about like the metaphysical nature. The difference seems obvious. Hello? Am I cutting out still?
if people are
You're cutting out,
that
Jack.
if people are lying, that means that the belief that they profess to have is in fact not their belief.
Yeah, I agree. No, I'm asking how you tell.
So presumably, if it's not their belief, we should see behavioral evidence that's consistent with what they really believe.
Okay, well,
in
this is
some
just gonna.
context, right?
Yeah, but this is gonna be really weird then, because then do you believe in, for example, behaviors that aren't actions?
I'm sorry.
Do you believe Do you believe there are behaviors that aren't actions?
Behaviors.
Like your body. So I think this was Joe. Joe made it. Basically, behaviors are effectively just stuff that your body does. Some of these things can be actions, which is to mean to say that they're in accord with your intention. But some of these things could just be like just behaviors that aren't intentional, just stuff your body does. Like your body might randomly start moving. You could be on drugs or something like that, and only be in partial control of your body or something, where there's things just aren't in line with your stuff like that exists.
Yeah.
Okay, so how would you distinguish between someone who's acting involuntarily and someone who's acting like blind? Because, like, for example, someone could say, I think killing people is out of accord with my desires, but then for some set of circumstance, they just start randomly. I think you'd have to say that you couldn't tell.
If the two hypotheses generate different predictive expectations in some context, then it should, in theory, be possible to gather evidence favoring one over the other hypothesis.
I mean, the only differentiation between would be with the mental, unless you think you can like literally access the mental. Do you think you can do that?
If you're saying is there a way to distinguish the iZombie hypothesis from the hypothesis that someone is an agent, right? I would agree that there's no way to demonstrate that. But if you think somebody is an agent, presumably there are ways to differentiate their voluntary actions from their involuntary ones.
Like, a lot of times you can't though. There's like really weird stuff. Like people might just do actions like unconscious. Unless you're gonna say that that is intentional. That'd be really weird. Do you think unconscious actions are intentional?
But Vic doesn't deny that you can have unconscious belief.
Oh, that's really weird. Okay, well that's gotta be really weird.
Wait, you don't think you can have beliefs that you don't know of, that are subconscious?
I mean, I guess you. No, I think you could. No, I don't. I agree with the position. I just think it's really weird.
Well, I don't know. It seems
no,
to
because
make
then you're
sense
gonna
to
have
me.
to agree. Because then you're gonna have to say like a sleep. Well, do you believe in the self? Because I don't even think you could believe in the self with this view.
Where when you're just saying self, are you saying self-identity
Like,
or like identity?
Like I think like the thing you believe in, like the thing we talk about when we say the self is there. Because I don't think you actually could, because you literally think like there's another person in your mind that has some set of beliefs.
I don't think we hold to that. Jack, we don't hold to that, do we?
No. If you say that you believe that there are unconscious beliefs, you're effectively saying there's another person. Like you're effectively saying you have like multiple personalities.
Yeah, I've never heard of us talk about there being a self or anything like that.
Well,
Jack,
you
do we
did.
hold that
You did
view?
earlier.
When did I say that?
You said that when you were arguing with Vade. You said we take the self to like be external or something, or to have external aspects.
No, I was referring. The only time I mentioned things being external was content.
Yeah, exactly. You were saying some aspects of like when we refer to the self, we have beliefs, and then some of these things are external.
Right, yeah, like beliefs, right? I'm a content externalist, right? So I take beliefs.
Yeah, but I'm
from
just
the
saying
external.
you mentioned the self though. That's what I was saying.
Oh,
So
I see.
Jack, do you believe in a self?
Yeah.
What do you
Oh,
mean
so
when you
this is
say
what I do.
self? Just like the agent aware of its own beliefs or whatever?
Presumably there are
Fanatic.
beliefs and desires that one has that if one didn't have them, one wouldn't recognize oneself as oneself, right?
Okay, factor with this. So you're cutting out still.
So I would take that to be in some way constitutive of a self.
Okay, well then you would be saying like any unconscious belief isn't your belief then. It's just another person.
I don't think they are unconscious beliefs.
Okay, well Vic does. So that's weird.
I don't think Vic does either.
Oh, you think Vic just said that as a troll?
What do